5y, 54y, 6h. If there's a clue in there to what that means, I'm not picking it up. Other than atheism, if you had the ability to make any other religion the only true religion, which would you choose and why? Okay, super complicated, because what is a religion? To me, I say I'm an atheist. And what I mean by an atheist is I don't believe in Abrahamic type gods, in supernatural characters with human personalities who affect the way things happen. But as even such major atheists as Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris will tell you, Eastern religion is not like that. When I remember as a kid, I thought that Buddha was the Chinese Jesus. It's not like that at all. There's a huge supernatural encrustation on Buddhism that makes it a religion. Well, or I don't know. I wouldn't want any supernatural religion that I know of to be true, based on what I know about them. They all sound really sucky to me. I've said in previous videos that if I were to believe in a supernatural, an extra world on top of the real world, that fulfills the function of the kind of supernatural extra worlds that religions offer, the one that seems the most appealing to me, seems the most human and the most redeeming, and I've said this before, would be one where you die and you wake up to discover that you are everybody, that you're part of, how to describe it? It's like I have this eye, I have this eye, I have two eyes. Everything I see in the world is the basis of these two eyes. Now, what if one eye were a person and the other eye were a different person, and suddenly they both woke up to the fact that they were not separate eyes, they were me, and they had seen, this is a stupid analogy. Basically, yeah, if I'm going to imagine a supernatural scenario, I like the idea of everyone waking up to their participation in a total conscious experience. Now, I don't believe that when we die we wake up to this conscious experience or anything like that, but that is a metaphor for what we do experience, which is that we are all basically particular focuses of the entirety of the universe as it impinges on this one happening, which is you. And that, to me, that's what Alan Watts is all about for me. I keep saying this, people go, well, are you really an atheist then? Yes, yes. If an atheist is someone who doesn't believe in a big separate personality judging us and creating things and changing the natural way that things work on a whim, I don't believe in any of that. I believe it is not true. There is no way that I can imagine it being true. However, by the same token, I don't believe that I am this little consciousness trapped that grew up somehow separately out of nothing within this body to look out at the entire universe and feel like, someday I'm going to die and that's the end of it and I'm so lonely. I don't feel that anymore, even though as a human being, on a social level, I'm really maladept, as Marisha Kay put it. One of the things I loved in her vlogs is she talked about her being maladept, and I'm maladept with people in social situations, but at the same time I'm not lonely. I feel that I am an expression of everything else. It's sort of like reverse solipsism. Instead of believing that I'm the only thing in the universe, I believe that I am more or less a figment of the imagination of the universe, not in a supernatural way, but just in as a metaphoric way of talking about how everything, you know, from evolution to physics to you know, society, went into making me what I am, so that there's nothing left. If I take away everything that goes into me, there's no me left. You know, and even though I think I have a pretty distinct personality, it's a figment of the universe's imagination. Okay, I'm moving on. I am an atheist. Damn you all. Somebody, oh Christ, somebody left a weird comment that I couldn't follow on one of my videos, and I was going to answer, and then I forgot something about, you know, your definition of atheism is not mine because you don't lack a positive disbelief, or you only lack a belief, or something. Oh, it was about the one where I was talking about atheism being a badge of this and a badge of that. That was just that was a metaphor for what YouTube atheists seem to be all about, which is, you know, what atheism means, you know, as an identity. And I was just saying that as an identity, it's reactive. You know, without theism, what good is an identity as an atheist? So, you know, you're forever married to theism if you identify yourself primarily as an atheist. And this person was saying, oh, no, you know, I'm just an atheist. And I go, yeah, I agree with you. So why do we even have an atheist community? Well, it's important because there's a theist community and they're making trouble in the world. But that's the only reason to think of yourself as an atheist. It's reactionary, it's defensive. It's not something to bask in and enjoy. It's the things that make you an atheist that are things you can bask in and enjoy, like understanding the world better than the explanations that religion offers. What was the question? Chandler Bin 2006. Would you rather ride on a train, dance in the rain, or feel no pain? Well, if I were a lot thinner and if I could dance, I would want to dance in the rain. I don't want to feel no pain, so I guess I would want to ride on a train. And I've actually ridden on a train recently where it was really nice to be riding on the train. Katie45 asks, if you could make a law that every person in America must read one book, what book would it be and why? The book on the taboo against knowing who you are by Alan Watts. I used to be afraid to name that book, even though it's like the most basic Alan Watts book, the most central in a way. I used to not want to recommend it because it's full of these hippieisms. He was already in his 40s, or actually I guess his 50s in the 1960s, and because I was a little kid then and grew up on the slang of the 60s, I could just tell that he was trying his hardest to sound like a kid. This was back during the heyday of the generation gap, and so it really grated on me the way he wrote it, but the ideas were great. So the book on the taboo against knowing who you are, which is basically about, if I use any kind of words for it, I will just get into Dutch with some atheist who has their dictionary out and will catch me in a misstatement of definitions. But basically it's about realizing that you are everything else, you know, rather than that you are you and everything else is everything else. Read it, it's really good. The book on the taboo against knowing who you are by Alan Watts. But I wouldn't want to make it a law. Well, actually, if there were okay, wait, I'm going to change my story. If you could make a law that every person in America must read one book, would be the Bible, from cover to cover, and pass an exhaustive test, but not a test created by religious people, just a test of what you read. That would be cool. Plus, the fact that you're coerced into doing it would just have the natural effect of making people more rebellious about it. Which is why I think that, which is why my least favorite atheist in the entire world is Madeleine Murray O'Hair, or as Brett Keane used to call her, Madam O'Hair. She is the one who succeeded in getting the Supreme Court to ban, to affirm that religion was banned from American schools. And I think that that is the cornerstone of the success of the fundamentalist resurgence in the United States. Whereas in places like, you know, in Europe and England, where they've had state religions and, you know, long histories of religious totalitarianism of one sort or another, now they're far more secular than we are, partly because they know they have a more recent and more definite history of dealing with the problems of religion, but also just because you don't have some court saying, no, you can't talk about that. I'd much rather have people, you know, openly fighting about religion in schools than feel like, you know, the godless atheists are cracking a whip over the heads of the poor, oppressed 90% of the population. So yeah, so maybe we should all be forced to read the Bible from cover to cover. Old Goat 7 asks, what are your thoughts on the Bush administration and the decisions they have made? More specifically, do you feel 9/11 was a conspiracy or there was involvement from our government? Is this too taboo? I can understand, but I'm sure after extensive coverage on religion, this will be easy enough. I don't think there was a conspiracy to make 9/11 happen. I think 9/11 happened through, I think that the Bush administration allowed 9/11 to happen because they didn't give a fuck about protecting the American people. They were all about helping their well-heeled cronies. I think that just as Hitler really, really didn't burn down the Reichstag, you know, the Bush administration really, really didn't have anything to do with 9/11, unless you want to, you know, go back and say they indirectly caused it, their kind indirectly caused it by supporting the kind of anti-Soviet terrorism, Muslim terrorism that led to the anti-American Muslim terrorism of Al-Qaeda. But that's a whole other can of worms. But basically my feeling about the Bush administration is it's the worst administration I know anything about in the history of the United States. They're crony capitalism at their worst. They're banana Republicans. A few weeks before 9/11, a friend of mine who has 3 daughters and is super conservative, not conservative in his thinking, but just conservative in his place in the world. You know, he has a lot to conserve. He has a lot to protect. You know, he came to me and he said, are you registered to vote? And I went, yeah, I'm registered to vote. And he said, well, you better be registered to vote because in 2004 we got to get rid of this Bush administration. I go, really? What? Why are you so upset? They knocked over the Kyoto treaties and they're just destroying everything everywhere. They're ruining everything, breaking all these treaties. I didn't know which treaties they were talking about. He was talking about, but I think that they were bent on a whole package of programs and policies that all had one thing in common, which was benefiting well-heeled, powerful money interests, whether they be in the military-industrial complex, the energy sector, what have you. And 9/11 fell into their lap to allow them to run wild. But I also think that if any other administration had been in office, other than the Bush administration, they would have had a much better chance of catching 9/11 before it happened. And all of the evidence that has come out since then points in that direction. It points to the Bush administration having no interest in defending the United States as opposed to building up the forces that are supposedly about defending the United States. It's sort of like the war on drugs. In practice, the war on drugs has led to more drugs, more drug usage, and more dangerous drugs and more dangerous drug dealers, while at the same time creating a whole class of wealthy law enforcers, you know, for-profit prison companies, and well, this is going to go on too long, but basically sort of get the gist of what I'm talking about. So you sort of get a sense of my position. I should do a vlog about all this kind of stuff, but I hate the political comments that come whenever I go to a vlog about politics. It just degenerates into, you know, the two sides having their standard arguments and just spitting them out over and over again. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get to that eventually. Captain Cosmos asks, if I send you a song I wrote, would you direct a music video for it? Only if I loved it, and if I didn't love it, then you'd hate me. So it's a conundrum. This is one of the things that I was the most afraid of when I got onto YouTube and mentioned that I actually worked in the film business to some extent. I didn't want to have people, you know, sending me things. I spent 9 years in I was a script analyst for a major Hollywood development company I can't name at this point, but basically I've had the painful experience that I didn't want of being the guy that people were trying to get stuff to, and it just isn't something that I'm really ready for. But you know, I don't know. I don't know what to say. If it was the song of my dreams, I'd love it. But if I didn't love it, then you'd hate me. And I just hate that because I hate to be hated. OoogieBoogie asks, do you believe that the 28 Days, Weeks Later series is better than the Night, Dawn, Day of the Living Dead? No, I don't like the 28 Days, 28 Weeks series, even though I like the premise, because the premise is more, in a way, it's more realistic. But the way it was handled, I don't like the filmmaking style, and I don't. I'm a big fan of a visual style that allows you to go into the environment of the film, as opposed to being constantly being bounced off of the screen by distancing visual techniques, so that you know, I mean, it can give you that sense of being in the media, you know, so it's contemporary and all this kind of stuff, but you can't sink through the screen and be there. And that's the kind of cinema that I like, is the cinema that draws you in as opposed to keeps you at bay and watching. So I didn't like the way it looked, and ultimately the zombies, the running, screaming zombies, I thought they were too much of a good thing. They were just too active. I think one of the cool things about zombies is, you know, you could probably defeat any one given zombie. It's just that there's so many of them. So a story in which the zombies are in a complete frenzy and any one of them could take you out just seems to defeat the whole idea of being slowly hemmed in by just a mob of you know, subhuman monsters. Anyway, the commenteer. Oh, I don't know, but I do want to ask you something. If you knew you had only 1 year left to live, would you do anything different than what you're doing now? Follow-up, is that a stupid question? No, if I really knew that I had only 1 year to live, I would stop paying my credit cards. And I would, I don't know, run away or something. Yeah. So, I don't know. If I knew that I had 1 year to live, I would get to test out all my theories about my sense of existence and consciousness. It's not a stupid question. It's just a question everybody asks, and nobody really knows the answer until it happens to them. Anthony Burgess, author of A Clockwork Orange, wrote A Clockwork Orange and like 2 other novels during a year when he believed he was going to die and he desperately needed to make money for his family. And then he found out he wasn't dying and lived for another 20-something years. So I guess finding out you're going to die can be a good thing if you don't die. Trumbone asks, you mentioned being addicted to YouTube. Do you think you have an addictive... Yes, I have a completely addictive personality. And if so, what are some other things you've gotten addicted to? I don't smoke, I don't drink, except like twice a year at, you know, New Year's and Christmas. And don't do drugs. I had one of the best nights of my life on pot about 28 years ago. And I woke up the next day and I went, that was such a beautiful experience. And for some reason I never smoked pot again because I knew I had an addictive personality. But I drink easily 6 liters of Diet Dr. Pepper a day. I don't eat that much at the moment, but I got to get out and exercise. I'm way the fuck overweight. I'm 100 pounds overweight. I've been 150 pounds, 160 pounds overweight. But I got to lose a lot of weight, and it's strictly because I have been a junk food junkie since childhood. So that got me. But generally anything that I like, I do to excess. I don't have a very balanced personality in that sense. In fact, I don't know how I could say that I'm balanced in any way, except that I'm not manic. You know, I'm not bipolar. But certainly when it comes to things I like, I do them as much as I can when I find out I like them. Okay. Leporidus asks, given enough time, what would be the method you use to clean up your home? An atomic bomb? Top down, bottom up, trash anything, box it in, bit by bit, etc. A friend of mine has a real messy place and is unable to tidy it up without renting a neighboring condo to swap the room contents. He's been saying that for 6 years now. Yeah, I really wish I had a good answer for that. I wish I had been trained at an early age to be a neat freak, because I would like to be neat. And for many years I had a collecting addiction of a sort, in that I would try to keep all the the schedules from movie revival houses that I went to. I'd try to keep a copy of every one of them. You know, all sorts of things like that. I own huge numbers of paperback books that I know I'm never going to read. Old science fiction books that I've looked at a few pages of and said, no, I'll never read these again, but I keep them for the covers, some of them for nostalgia value. Probably do some show and tell about that later on some video. My biggest problem is that I've let important stuff get mixed in with trash. And so in order to clean up, I have to sort through everything. If I could just throw stuff out and know that I wasn't going to throw out something really important, I could clean up fairly quickly. I'm just too fucking lazy or old or something at this point to get a handle on this, but I really have to, because the mess is just burying me at this point.